warfare through law. That they have put all the burden on the state government. So you have a central law with a burden on the state government. Now states are up in arms. People, Karnataka for instance, has already announced that it's going to go to court because it's a violation of Article 258 of the Indian Constitution. Neither were people consulted, nor were states consulted, nor were panchayats who are going to lose things consulted. Nobody across the board is consulted.
But it will increase more unemployment and poverty.
So that clearly they like vulnerable labor who will be cheaper and cheaper. That's the message they pass.
Welcome to Idina. Today we are with Nikhil Dey, who is one of the prominent labor rights activists and one of the key figures for right to information movement and NREGA. So we are here to talk to Mr. Nikhil Dey. Welcome to Idina.
Thank you.
How does it feel to be in Bangalore today?
Bangalore, it's good to be here. There were sessions of South first, so it's good to see a southern perspective. And where there were sessions on the new gig workers law that Karnataka has passed and notified, as well as on what's happening at MGNREGA, which is affecting the whole country.
Yeah, you talked about MGNREGA and you were one of the people who were important in implementing of this law, and now that it has been changed to VBGRAMG bill, what are your thoughts on it and how do you think it's going to affect people now?
We choose to call it VBGRAMG, VBGRAMG, because the name itself is completely, I think, unfair to the Hindu religion to try and put a religious figure deliberately, and it's so awkward in the way it's been put. But anyway, names come later. First is the content of the law, and it is they have repealed MGNREGA, so that itself is a very big revealing thing that they felt the need to repeal it, even though 90% of this law is more than 90% is a copy paste from that. But key things have been changed, and the key things are at multiple levels right across the law. And they affect, there are 26 crore registered MGNREGA workers in this country, households in this country. And that if about half the number of households go to work, you can imagine how much impact there is. And in a given year, it could be much more if there's a crisis like there was over during COVID. The immediate irony is that they are going around building this narrative, they meaning the central government, that, oh, we have only changed the name, and we are actually increasing the number of days to 125, which is being publicized all over the country. Railway stations, bus stands, newspapers, full-page ads. So if that were the case, what was the big deal? We would have all been very happy, all of us who have worked. We would have actually stood up and applauded them for doing that. But they have, in its place, in name, certainly there is one provision that says they are giving a guarantee of 125 days, but they've done nothing to make that possible. In fact, the opposite. If whatever people were getting under the 100-day guarantee, they will really lose any semblance of a guarantee.
How does it affect at the village level? You mentioned the gram in the VB gram, and we'll follow up how the states are opposing that it's going to put a bigger burden on the states.
Yeah, so I'll first start with the worker, the NREGA worker. The wonder of MGNREGA, and it was unparalleled in the world, is that a government said that any rural worker anywhere in the country, in rural India, could ask for work. It was a universal guarantee. And within 15 days of asking for work would have to get work or would get unemployment allowance. And that would continue until they got work. So that was a mechanism within the law that gave a guarantee. Contrast that with, they have said the same words that anyone can ask for 125 days, up to 125 days of work. But they have the words in areas notified by the central government. And in areas of the state notified by the central government. So anywhere in a state, not just states, within a state, the central government can notify particular blocks of particular panchayats or particular areas.
They are going to identify
the areas. Yes. Okay. So they may do the whole country, they may not, they may do the whole country and turn it off. Whereas the earlier law had Notification
Mandated.
only for the rollout, but said once it was rolled out, it could not be pushed back. The second, so people, firstly, you don't know. You're completely insecure whether you will be in a notified area or not.
Yeah.
The second part is that they have put all the burden on the state government. So you have a central law with a burden on the state government. And that was always a problem in NREGA, that if you demanded work, at least that government had to promise that yes, we will give it. Now states are up in arms. People, Karnataka, for instance, has already announced that it's going to go to court because it's a violation of Article 258 of the Indian Constitution without being consulted. Consulted, nobody was.
Nobody.
Neither were people consulted, nor were states consulted, nor were panchayats who are going to lose things consulted. Nobody across the board was consulted. And you had a law imposed, and in no debate in parliament, no standing committee, no parliamentary committee. There was just completely steamrolled through, and a law that came with full consensus was completely bulldozed, actually, and repealed. And in its place, it is really very, very sad that at least the BJP could have said, no, we don't really want to give an employment guarantee. We want to run a scheme from top down. We want to run it in this fashion. That would have been better. There could have been a clear debate. Now people in the country are facing these multiple messages and confusion, and it will take time before they realize, oh, this guarantee is actually gone, and what's come in its place is no guarantee except a provision they put in of blocking work for 60 days to anyone, which is unprecedented position for all the rich, for all employers, big landlords, contractors, corporates.
So one thing that has come across through this conversation is that there's a lot of confusion in this new law. Why do you think, it's a speculative question, why do you think the central government thought to bring such a law when NREGA was quite a successful scheme overall?
So it's clear that the success of NREGA was what they did not like. They did not like the rights of the poor being increased.
But it will increase more unemployment and poverty.
So that clearly they like vulnerable labor who will be cheaper and cheaper. That's the message they pass.
Yes.
Not just through this law, not just through that provision, but their 60-day clause which says that you cannot run NREGA for 60 days at all. Not run VBGRAMG for 60 days at all. So it means, it's clear, their message is completely clear. We want to provide cheap, vulnerable labor to big landlords who are the only people they're calling farmers. And instead of doing something for the farming community, they want them to be in battle with the poor, so that they extract from the poor, from the workers, from agricultural labor. And the bulk of farmers are actually small and marginal farmers who benefited greatly from NREGA. So to close it off is also very unfair. They themselves don't have that much work on their farms at that time.
Also, when NREGA came into action, it was to some extent to prevent rural distress and migration of labor from rural area to the urban area. So you think this will increase further urban migration, which is already a big problem in India?
Without question it will. And you will see. You will see on what we call in the north, these Mazdoor Choktis, the places where labor gathers. You will see the numbers increasing. You will see migration. You will see distress migration. Women got so much work under NREGA, first time in the workforce, in bank accounts, large numbers. It was almost a women's employment program. They got equal wages. There's all wages. There's going to be on multiple fronts, no matter what the government will say. And the government is saying things, but there are provisions in the law that make it clear. They're making the states do it. How can they speak on behalf of the states? And the states will implement it badly so that they don't have so much burden. Then the government will say, oh, the states are not giving their share, they won't give their own share. And
so it will be a failure either way. But the burden of failure will fall on the states.
On the people, on the states and on the people, and they'll blame the states. They will go around saying that the states have not provided money, that's why it's failing. Whereas it was a law designed, passed by the central government, funded at least 100% for labor by the central government.
The topic of gig worker is a lot in discussion these days about their rights and what they are going through overall. Do you think there should be a this kind of NREGA kind of scheme for urban workers as well?
Yeah, so Rajasthan passed an Urban Employment Guarantee Act of 125 days. And Rajasthan, in the last Congress government,
Okay.
passed 25 days extra for NREGA workers as well.
Okay.
But on top of what the center was giving of 100 days. And so, therefore, in Rajasthan, whether urban or rural, all workers had a right to 125 days of work, demanding that. That is very necessary. It was a not well designed program in the sense that it still had to work it out. Many people say, what's the need for someone in urban areas? There is a need. There are people who are there. And there are so many things that can be done by those people. Caregiving, for instance, looking after the disabled in a city,
Exactly.
looking after very young people,
That's a big
extra
industry
people
now.
in the hospitals. All that can be done. You can do much more apprenticeship. You can do all kinds of things through an urban employment guarantee. Just like the rural employment guarantee could have been better, this could also be better. There is a need. But the gig workers law is not asking the state for any resources. The gig workers law says that the market that is surviving on gig workers and their labor, it's their labor that this market is surviving on. Their labor makes them entitled to a just wage and makes them entitled to social security and occupational
Benefits.
safety. And that law, Karnataka, is a very important breakthrough law. I only hope they implement it well. They have set up a board and it's ready to go. And on the other hand, you have a central government passing gig worker schemes, no law, which will give nothing to people. So it's a big burden on Karnataka having passed the law to actually implement it with imagination and with commitment.
So, keeping in the context of labor rights and all these laws, it will increase migration to the cities and in the end benefit the capitalist. You think it's all is like by keeping in mind all this, they're bringing up these schemes or they're just brought out haphazardly? Do you think?
Completely. Seems clear. Seems clear.
There's-
That's why even if they did not have that 60-day clause, one would have thought maybe they have some idea of the states actually giving enough resources and increasing the resources and therefore doing things. But the fact that they have put in a clause for the first time in the history of India that you will not run a government scheme in order to please employers. And not employers for them that workers are not available. Of course, that's how the market functions. You pay more than what NREGA workers are getting, which is a pittance. And people will come to you. They want work and wages. But if you close off that work, then you are making them at the mercy of big capitalists. You're making them at the mercy. And what could be the advantage of greater migration? Only again that
Cheap
the labor
labor.
market is cheap. Everything else will cause you problems actually. But nobody is thinking that far.
I want to talk about the second biggest contribution of yours, which is the Right to Information Act. It's been 20 years now, in 2025, 20 years of Right to Information Act. How do you feel about it? Are you satisfied that it has achieved the goal that it meant out to be?
The right to information was a fundamental shift in governance. It was lauded for good reasons as the second best law in the world. It really led to a shift in power. So it was great. And the greatness was because of millions of Indians who used it and continue to use it. But on the soon after the 20th anniversary of the right to information, which was 12th October, the government amended it through another law, the Digital Personal Data Protection Act. And it had made it in one line, because again it's very complex to understand, that you can get no one's name using the excuse of privacy.
While
Now,
citizens do not have any privacy.
Yeah, no, citizens don't have privacy because all these companies look at everything through your phone and everything
Exactly.
else. And the government can through Aadhaar and through multiple
There's no
means,
data
including
protection
this-
laws
No,
overall.
there is a data protection law which was brought in, but it exempts the government
Yeah.
from any. So it makes the citizen vulnerable to the government, and big companies just have to fulfill some requirements. You and I click when we click, but they mixed up personal and privacy. They are saying personal means anything that can identify a person. You can't get that. Now that's not privacy. A government servant has a name, they have an address, they have a phone number. We need those public servants' details. Also, a public servant and what their assets are, where it's come from, that should be public information. Who has not done my right? So there are three things RTI did. It controlled corruption. You need to know who was doing it, and you could control it. You can identify. It controlled the arbitrary exercise of power. Again, you needed to know who was misusing their power. And it gave you your rights because you knew who was stopping your rights, your water connection, your electricity connection, charging you too much, doing something else, someone's license, even business people used it. Someone's income tax rebate not coming or whatever else. So all those things, it showed who is not giving it, and then you could hold them to task.
True.
Now you can't get the name. And if you get the name for journalists, and I want to say this to you, your own profession is over, because without consent from the person concerned, regardless of who they are, what they've done, truth is not in defense.
A lot of data we could get.
I'm not talking about RTI.
Yes.
I am saying in the DPDPA, if you do not, even if you get information from some sources, if you do not get consent from the person who you're reporting about, you can be taken to, you can be held in breach of the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, and the fines and penalties under that are from 250 crores to 500 crores. So what should have been a law for the big metadata companies like Facebook, like Google, like Twitter, have been unleashed on the citizens of India. So what will be done? People will be targeted. Maybe you can't afford 200 crores, but can you afford 2 crores? So that is what people will. It's like the bulldozer of immense proportions, because your whole family will say, no, don't do this work, don't do journalism, don't do activism.
So further silencing of
totally
dissent.
Yeah, dissent and free speech.
Free speech.
Freedom of expression, free speech.
Okay, I wanted to go to the next question, that so many of RTI activists and journalists were targeted over the years when the information was available.
Yeah.
So that was already a threat. So overall we see that there's a bargain of transparency and the doles from the government. Now in this case we will not be getting anything, and we are losing the transparency and information as well. So as part of closing comments, what would you like to say?
People have to stand up. They have to say enough is enough. These are laws we fought for. These are people's laws. We will not tolerate what is actually lawfare. It's warfare through law.
True.
And they're unconstitutional at many levels. And they undermine people's basic fundamental rights. They did not go to the people seeking a mandate that we want to change the RTI, we want to completely repeal NREGA, we want to do this. They got no such mandate. They have no business to pass these kinds of laws, but they will not listen. We know that. So people will have to stand up. They will have to use their democratic rights. They will have to do it in a peaceful manner. But they must know that politically, in a democracy, you cannot do this. If nothing else works, then we hope that people will teach them a lesson so that this does not happen.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dey. We hope with this discussion, our audience will learn about the nuances of VBGRAMG Yojana as well as amendments done to the Right to Information law. And as Mr. Dey said, it is for the people of this country to stand up and fight for the rights that we have achieved through immense struggle and that are being bulldozed on a daily basis. For more such discussion, like, follow, share and subscribe edina.com. Thank you.
ಮತ್ತಷ್ಟು ವಿಶೇಷ ವಿಡಿಯೋಗಳನ್ನು ನೋಡಲು ಮತ್ತು ಹೊಸ ವಿಡಿಯೋಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ತಿಳಿಯಲು
edina.com ಯೂಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ಚಾನೆಲ್ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಕ್ರೈಬ್ ಮಾಡಿ
ಮತ್ತು ಬೆಲ್ ಐಕಾನ್ ಕ್ಲಿಕ್ ಮಾಡಿ.